to begin by saying thank you very much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. I suppose the first question is who are you and what's the involvement with Diva Life from Hell?
So we are both co-producers on Diva Life from Hell. Alistair has sort of led the charge as a producer, and we actually worked on the show together in March of 2020. With opening night set to be the 16th of March, and we all remember what happened on that day. So it was very sad that we never got to open. We did do one closed performance for friends and family only who felt like, they could take the risk and come, but it wasn't open to the public. And so the show never got to open. Now, I was the director on that production, and Alistair was the lighting designer. And Alistair, sort of all throughout the pandemic, was very keen to bring back Diva. Mm-hmm. And he sort of kept messaging me saying, when are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? We've got all the set in storage. We know how to make the show work. And I was saying, I don't know if now's the right time. When can we, what's the right space? What's the right time? And then we happened to be in the bar of the other palace one evening, and Luke Bayer was there, and we had a couple of glasses of wine with Luke, and Alistair sort of turned to me and whispered in my ear. He was like, should we mention Diva to Luke, because he would be perfect? And suddenly I thought, ooh, okay, now I'm interested in doing this show again. So Alistair very much led the charge in bringing it back, all credit to him. And then we said to Luke that night, we said, there's this show that we did before and we kind of want to bring it back. The soundtrack's on Spotify. Why don't you give it a listen, see what you think? Luke then DM'd me and said, I love it, let's do it. And the rest was kind of history. We already had the rights semi in the bag because we knew the writers from the last time we did it. So we sent a quick email to them. They were happy. The licensing company then were very happy to issue us with a contract, and the wheels just started spinning. And now here we are a month before we open, and suddenly we're doing Diva again.
So for those who haven't seen or heard of Diva Life from Hell before, what is it about?
So, Diva Life from Hell follows the story of Desmond Channing, who is the president of the Ronald Reagan High School Drama Club. And life is great for Desmond. He is best friends with the drama teacher. He's like top of the drama in the school. We can probably all relate to that, with a lot of drama kids out there. And then things start to go wrong when a new kid called Evan Harris joins the school, and it transpires that Evan Harris was actually a professional actor and really threatens Desmond's position as this like theatre kid. So Evan gets cast as the romantic lead in the school production of Pirates of Penzance, and Desmond gets very jealous. So he writes an executive order to ban Evan Harris from taking the role. But the cast don't take this too kindly, and they sort of expel Desmond as the president. Desmond drops out of the school play. He doesn't go and see the school play, but he sits outside in his car in the parking lot, which is kind of scary vibes. And then as the show comes down, he sees everybody leaving the auditorium, and I won't spoil what happens, but that's when he does something pretty catastrophic. As a result of that, he ends up in hell, and his punishment for ending up in hell, or his punishment in hell, sorry, is that he has to deliver a cabaret show to an audience of demons every night for eternity, explaining the events that led him there. Now, we at the Turbine are the audience of demons watching Desmond deliver that cabaret show.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so now we've heard a little bit what it's about. Alistair, what is it about the show that brought you in? What excites you about this production in particular?
I think we heard from Joe earlier. It's sort of I came on in the early on production, which was produced by a good friend of mine, Stephen Yoland, and he brought me in to design the show from the lighting point. And as soon when we got to the point where it was going to close, something really hit me with the show. I think it was just you really just relate to it as a theatre goer, but also as a sort of child growing up in theatre. You can relate to a lot of the points, and so I fell in love with the show, and I didn't want to see it not have its London run. And so I was really passionate about bringing it back to London, or to get it into London. And so, I think it's got such a great following in terms of how we follow Desmond's character. And I also think it's something that we've not ever seen in London before. It's something that's quite unique. Luke will play a multitude of roles, which is really quite exciting for both Luke and for London, that we don't get many one-man musicals at all, or one-man plays, or any sort of one-person shows. So for this, I think it's a really exciting opportunity for London to see it.
Especially the idea of like the audience almost being a role within the show without being employed to be a role within the show. It's not something that I personally have experienced before, so it's obviously really exciting to see how that works out. But also with the idea of this sort of diva is obviously really popular at the moment, considering casting choices that have been made around the world. So almost critiquing that idea of the diva in musical theatre is obviously really new and really relevant at the moment. So obviously recently you had a production of it at West End Live. How did that go? How was the feedback from that, and how was the response?
Well,
go on. So we must say, me and Joe weren't actually present at the West End Live performance, which was gutting. We both had other commitments and other things on, which was really sad. But we were really lucky. Sarah Barron, who's our wonderful production assistant, actually zoomed us in, and we watched live on Zoom. And for us, I think both as sort of young producers, it was a really quite magical moment for us. We felt very honoured to be there, very proud to be there, and to support musical theatre in London, and it was the crowd reaction was brilliant, exactly how we wanted it to be. We took a bit of a risk with our opening live. If you haven't seen it, you can watch it on the London Theatre page. You can go and view it. It's brilliant, and Luke did a fantastic job. And the show, I think we really sold it to London as part of our West End Live. But the whole experience was brilliant. It is such a wonderful opportunity to be able to be up there, and I think London Theatre do such a wonderful job at getting so many musicals together. It's a really, really lovely. It was a really, really lovely day. Go on, Joe.
What was so good about it as well was it let us test how audiences would react to the sort of outrageous nature of the show. So with approval from the writers, I wrote a joke about Desmond being on a contract for all eternity, which is part of the show, but being fired from that, and that's how he got to perform at West End Live. And the joke sort of suggested that the producer was maybe someone we all know in the theatre industry who fired his cast without telling them, and they found out via a tweet. And I thought, okay, that'll be a really good test to see if the audience find that funny, because that's kind of the nature of the show. It pokes fun at a lot of things in the theatre industry. And they loved it. They went wild. And I was sat at Glastonbury watching it on my phone, zoomed in, and I was just inside this tent, literally like, wow, that's so fun. So we were delighted with the response. We really were.
And I suppose there's some danger about the audience, like we talked about, being a role, but classifying them as demons, I suppose that's a bit of how will people respond to that? And obviously they've enjoyed it and it's been great fun.
Well, that's what's I think, going back to sort of the question before last, is so interesting about this show. I mean, Al obviously mentioned it's a one-man show and he plays lots of different roles. But what I think is fantastic is that there's been a real immersive theatre boom in London and around the world. And this isn't really immersive theatre because you're not getting involved and like being given challenges to complete whatever. But we're breaking down that fourth wall and that barrier by the very nature of the cabaret setting. So there's a lot of audience participation. We're going to really create an immersive space, even if it's not an immersive show, like within the Turbine. And it straddles lots of different sort of genres. So we've got real heavy Broadway musical theatre. We've got a little bit of this immersive flavour going on, which obviously they're doing so brilliantly over at the Playhouse, the Kit Kat Club with Cabaret. And it's sort of, there's a real groundswell of attention for shows that offer audiences something a little bit more or a little bit different. And I think Diva does that because it's a proper classic musical style. We've got that immersive element. We've got the multi-rolling element. And I just think it's going to be quite unique.
So what's next for the show? What's coming up? What's the pipeline dreams? What's going on next for the show?
Oh, well, you're going to have to ask the big.
If I told you what my pipeline dream is, I think Joe would have a heart attack. But I think as a young producer, I'm really lucky to have the opportunity to produce this in London. I think that I've sort of, if this was the last thing I ever did, I'd be absolutely thrilled with it. I think for me, I'd love to see it go on. I'd love to see it have another life after the Turbine. It really depends, and I think we will know more once we see the impact from the audience. So yes, we're really I'd love to see it. Go on, that would be my dream. For it.
So
What about you, Joe?
Oh, sorry, Joe.
What about you, Joe?
I couldn't possibly comment on the future pipeline of the show. And as Al said, if he told me his pipeline dreams, I'd probably lose my mind. So let's not get into that today. We've got to get through the Turbine run first.
Yeah. Well, you touched on Turbine. So where can people find the tickets? Where can people find out about the show? Where can they follow the journey?
So get us on social media is the first thing. We tweet a lot
at
Diva Musical London, LDN, on Twitter. And then I think it's at Diva Musical London, but spelt London on Instagram. We're very active on social media. We've got a fantastic social media manager who is pretending to be Desmond, and it's very funny. So follow us there. We're going to be doing some takeovers, hopefully with a couple of other bigger theatre outlets and the Turbine itself. And also all the information is on theturbinetheatre.com. And you can catch our flyers around town. We've got them in the other palace. We've got them at the Phoenix Artists Club. We've got them at the Theatre Cafe. So everywhere that the theatre people go, you can't escape Diva coming to London this summer.
Obviously, I will be in attendance. I am planning to take the journey all the way up, so I'm very excited about that. So where can people stay up to date with you two in particular? Do you have a social media presence that people can follow you at?
Yeah, you can find me at Alistair Lindsay Official on Instagram and at AL Official on Twitter. Yeah, you can find me, or go to Diva and find us there as well. What about you, Joe?
I'm at Joe McNeese, but I tweet a lot of nonsense.
He's a lot more active than I am. I just retweet lots of stuff.
I get into trouble for tweeting unpopular opinions about theatre, but I've stopped doing that now because I've realised that's not going to help my career. So it's all very boring at the moment.
But I suppose linking it back to the show, though, those sort of controversial comments and opinions and thoughts on theatre, this has been a way to channel them in a more, accepted outlet.
Yeah, let's let the work speak for itself before we start to drag anyone else down, I think.
Yes, totally. So again, as I said at the beginning, thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. So I wish you well, and as I said, I will be in attendance. I will be travelling up to see it, so I'm very excited about that. So thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Take care.
Take care.